AE CoronaDayz, outdoor again with Team Zion. Hello, Team Zion.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Excited to finally see you again after all this time. I mean, last time was Eloy, and that looks like ages ago. Way too long.
Yeah.
Yeah, I miss everybody. That's the truth.
Well, that's cool. It's a little bit of a different temperature in Eloy than it is in Norway right now.
Not for me, not much. It's
Yeah.
26 degrees here. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, Team Zion, who are you? For those who don't know. Why do you look at this?
We are the Norwegian free flight team, and we've been competing since 2014, or training since 2014. Yeah, current World Cup title holders. We've been planning on smashing all the competition in Russia, but we'll keeping our fingers crossed that we'll actually go there and compete. Or if not, we'll do World Championship 2020 and 2021.
Yeah. Let's dive in immediately.
Basically, what I remember the best from this competition is basically all the jumps we did were sunset or very close to sunset jumps, which was amazing.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
And this jump, I think as well, this is the first time I had such an intense experience of kind of like, well, both for Petter and I, we thought it was kind of like a flow experience because we'd never been so nervous and we trained so much and it was sunset and yeah, it was probably one of the coolest jumps in my life. I'd say this is pretty intense. It's a long time since I've seen this. This is cool.
The competition in Torge was actually, let's enjoy the sunset before we go. The competition in Torge was a little bit different because after a long time, it was huge, like lots of team. I remember Marie saying, all the good teams are here, like so many top level teams. The Swedish were really good, and Flo, and the French, of course, and you guys, and it was like big party. It was really nice. It felt for me, after judging for a few years, like a new beginning for the sport. Do you know what I mean?
That was a really cool competition. It was our first big competition. I think we got fourth, right? But that was because so we were on 5th place. And we were just super stoked that we were beating the Swedes, obviously, because that had to be our main goal as our first competition as a Norwegian team. And but then I think it was freestyle.
Yeah.
Had a from like round 5 maybe. He had some ear infection or something, and he couldn't go up anymore. So then we moved from 5th to 4th. So that was not too shabby for the first competition. Cheers, Pierre. But, I mean, there was quite a gap between us and the French at that time, so we were pretty stoked just to because you kind of tier it, you know. And in our tier, where we'd aim to be, we managed to come out at the top of our tier, so we were super fucking stoked with that competition.
Yeah, I mean, as Anna said, we only had one goal for that competition. That was beat the Swedes.
Yeah, nailed it.
That is where you said next time you're going to be up there.
Pardon?
In that competition, when you came fourth, that's where you set the goal for next time you're going to be up there, or?
Yeah. I mean, you set out with that goal. You set out with the goal to be the best that you can be. But yeah, I suppose that we really realized then, okay, we can do this kind of thing.
Possible.
A lot.
Yeah.
You can see in the videos, like there was a big difference between 4th, 5th, and 1st in that competition. But yeah.
And how many, for those who don't know, I was not on your team then. So I joined last year. It was Petter Stensvold. But I'm just wondering, how many jumps did you do leading up to that competition if you started the year before?
Let me just check with my manager.
I think we did just over 400 jumps that year.
Yeah.
Or that season.
And that's total with the team.
As a team.
As a team.
Yeah. As a
Okay.
team.
Since you first started. Yeah. And you, Andreas, you were the least experienced skydiver when you joined. As I remember.
Yeah, me and Petter were about the same in terms of jump numbers.
Yeah.
But
Remember Anna's picture on the box. Me and the boys. I should find the picture of you on the box. Me and the boys.
Yeah, Petter. Me and Petter had about the same amount of jumps, but Petter definitely had more experience from the tunnel, so his flying skills were higher than mine.
Yeah.
And I was the old lady from the beginning.
Most teams from that competition in Teuge I don't think they even exist anymore.
Yeah, it's not just, I think there's competitors around spread out in other teams, but no. There's that's most of the battle, right? To be a good competitor is longevity and commitment. And one of the best bits of advice I ever had was from Domi, and she's like, the team that stays together wins. So if you can just manage to keep a team together for a long enough time, you're probably going to be able to get better.
So how do you choose team members? I know you talked about this before, but
first we look at how rich they are and how good looking they are. Yeah, no.
So obviously I'm rich.
I ticked none of the boxes, so I got to choose. It's a lot about personality, I'd say, which was another really great bit of advice that we got from Domi as well in the beginning, was like, make sure you get in together with teammates that you want to hang out with, because it's much more difficult to change somebody's personality than it is to change their flying ability, because you can learn how to be a better flyer, but it's much more challenging to learn how to become a better human, even though it's possible. Yeah.
Is it true that during competition you do everything together, like you go as a team? Not too much?
It's really awkward when you go toilet though. Yeah, move as a unit. It's as much as possible. It's how did you know that? That's not just us though. That's a good tip for everyone.
No, but you're the only one that in the middle of something we were talking about in Saint Louis in 17, you said, well, we have to go, and we have to go as a unit, so bye now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's really, really helpful to move as a unit. Especially when you have the pressure of a competition. It's really nice to have the people that you love and care about the most right next to you. It's a cool way to move.
You had some indoor experience. You did in 2015 twice the dynamic four-way.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you saying that flying with the boys in Prague was super scary for you, and then you had another one with Dave in Dubai, right?
Yeah, that was really one of the coolest, because I flew a lot of four-way with the Joyriders before, right? But this was the first time I'd flown with the boys. And I remember, like, I was normally flying number one, but not with Dave, I was flying two. But when we was with you and Håvard, we were like getting ready to go in, and I'm always like, I would turn around and check with the girls before I go in, and I was like, okay, ready, set. So that was cool. That was that was fun. That was with Håvard, your old teammate.
Yeah.
Actually, I was on the competition where you were flying with the Joyriders in Bedford.
Oh yeah, that was our first competition.
Yeah, I remember that one. Domi sitting and writing down the drama sheet pages and pages and pages with very small letters that I cannot read. And I was
Did
like,
she leave out the bit where a suit exploded though? We got bonus points.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a cool competition.
We're going to get back into indoor a little bit later. Let's move to 2016 Chicago. Again, a really big competition. How was that one?
Chicago was really cool. We trained, I'm going to say we trained about 400 jumps more here. So like what you see here is about 800 jumps of team training. It was really cool because we stayed in Chicago for a whole month. Stayed in one of the little cabins there. We we did the whole Walmart rental program. We kitted out our hut pretty nicely, and we trained there for a long time. And we were training next to Azur, the Dubai team, and it ended up us being like the closest, like battling for, I can't remember what places.
It was fifth, wasn't it? Sixth?
Yeah, sixth or fifth or something like this.
Yeah.
Can't remember the spacing, but we had a really good tone, and it's like what I love the most about free fly as well. It's like it's competitive, but it's also very friendly, because like in skydiving everything's a really small community, and there's not much bullshit in the sport. So it's really nice to be able to compete like within half of like 0.1 of a point for the positions, and it's just like a competition within the competition, and especially when you're battling against somebody you've got to know over a month and really get along with, it's just it was a lot of fun, that competition.
How much of a difference it is between one drops into another? Like how much the venue influence your competition?
It can be quite different. I'm gonna go with, again, the weather is what decides the most how it's gonna be. But like when you have a place like Skydive Chicago, which has amazing facilities, I think it's easier for them to run a smooth competition.
Yeah, and Rook has said like he wanted to do competition for competitors because he's done so many competitions himself in his life, and he really achieved that in the way that we had our rounds together and we were done in 2 or 3 days, I think, right?
Yeah.
So it was really, 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 really great competition for that. Really well organized, and yeah, super cool facilities.
Yeah, and I guess after doing so many world records and stuff over there, it felt like home as well. Like being in a place like Chicago or Eloy, where it's used to it. It's not new. You don't have to learn how it works. It's just going back home pretty much.
It was definitely a different experience than in Australia, because that's like a built-up drop zone. But it's kind of weird, I think, that especially with the vibe of a competition, it's not the same in Chicago and Eloy during World Meet World Cup as it is when you're there for like working or like a record or something. It's almost like you take that competition vibe with you, because we have the tents, we have our way of being during a competition. So that's actually pretty cool about the competitions. It's like a plan you can drop on over most places.
When you look at the routine from 15 in Teuge and the one from 16 in Chicago, there are some elements that are the same, like the belly going side carving, and others that are completely new. How do you start building your next routine? You just finished the competition. First of all, when do you start building your next routine? As soon as the one over, or you give it some time and then regroup? And second, how do you start? Like, do you start with a philosophy, like we want to do this different, or tell us more about that?
Well, I suppose we have like a flying style and a philosophy of always trying to fly. So try to minimize the time of like kind of static builds and stuff like this. So always keep it moving in any direction. And what we usually just kind of have a little bit of time to decompress after a competition and get some perspective in space, I guess. And then as soon as we get back to it, it's kind of exploration again. So then we get into looking at maybe new moves and new ideas we've had through the season, and like, oh, maybe we should do this, because obviously when you train and you're trying to do something and then maybe you fuck it up, but then, oh wow, that was really cool.
Yeah.
And then you get this good idea, but you don't really have time to invest a lot of jumps into exploring that avenue. So maybe we take some time at the beginning of the next season then to try some new moves, or maybe we've seen something else that inspired us, or we have something that's inspiring, and we just try to start from scratch with basically nothing, But a lot of the times we do something and we do maybe 40 jumps on one thing, and then it just kind of evolves into something really similar to what we were doing, because obviously that's what we like to fly. So it kind of evolves into that, you know.
I think we've been like pretty good and strict with ourselves as we develop a new line. We push to make sure there's things in there that we can't do, because if we're gonna, like, I think that we're in a really unique situation as free fly teams, as competitors. You know, you really don't often as a day-to-day flyer get to practice something again and again and again. So if you're building up to a competition, are you going to practice something again and again that you can already do? Like, you can definitely refine things, or are you going to challenge yourself at the beginning of building a routine and be like, I can't do this right now. I have faith that hopefully I'll be able to learn how to do this, or we will as a unit, you know. And sometimes we have to let things go then and like dial them back a little bit. And sometimes they stick through and we manage to learn something completely new and really understand something new about a move. And that's super rewarding. But there's definitely this period that you're like, shit, we've held on to this for too long.
It's quite an organic process. Yeah. It's not like, oh, we picture this routine in our head and then we go and train that till we can do it. It's more like Andreas said, we have one idea, we try that, we repeat it in the sky however many times we can do it in one jump. And then once that starts to be good, or we have to scratch it, we move forward, and maybe we practice something else and put it in our book, in a notebook, and leave it, and then we practice something else, and then once that maybe starts to work, we put those two elements together so we can do it in one jump. And then we, at the end of it, we have maybe 4 or 5 moves depending on how long they are, and then we try and rearrange, figure out the links and figure out the order of the moves, and then try and tie in an ending and a beginning. And if I really like if the beginning and ending ties together. It's kind of a common theme, but it's all organic, and we talk about it every debrief, and we usually spend probably an hour at least after each jumping day, just watching videos and discussing and writing down what we've done and what we learned in our books.
I'd say it's pretty cool as well, because we're all super passionate about flying. So those hours, they can really be an hour on some, you know, because we're like, we'll get into it about something. And maybe that's like, if you're thinking about being like from a new team perspective as well, and something that you can take into consideration when you're deciding how you should form your team together. Like, there are different styles of flying and there's different ways to look at things. And you don't need to think the same, but if you already appreciate a similar kind of way amongst yourself as a team, then that's going to be easier for you to figure out your own style as well. Because if you're from 2 different camps, you'll argue maybe often about what's right and what's wrong, and nothing's right and nothing's wrong, you know, it's just different ways of doing things.
You said the philosophy is keep moving and don't do anything static. So yeah. Is it even possible for you to train any of your elements inside the tunnel when you have downtime and weather holds and stuff?
Like, I would say for sure, and also not, because the like dynamic style flying, we're training elements that's always moving anyway, but it's never really exactly the same. We can almost never take our routine and put it into a tunnel, and that's been something that we've been like really, maybe in a way, almost proud of, because there's so many speed changes and we're moving all the time. But like now with the new tunnel in Abu Dhabi, we were like, maybe we could put a routine in that. So we wanted to go and check that out. But that's far away from here and we can't travel right now. So but
it's pretty much your life. I mean, that's all you do, right? Most of the time. Like, you either training for competition or load organizing or camps coaching or teams coaching. Don't you ever rest?
Resting has not really been high on the priority list over the last few years, but I would say it is super important. And if you're like you're pretty good at reminding us that we have to do that, and then you don't do it yourself either. So.
No, but it's just because the other guys are weak. I don't need rest, obviously.
The season last year, they were just taking it in turns, like who's going to be injured or not there. I was like, guys, come on.
Yeah, I definitely won that competition with being the most injured last year.
And let's just take it straight to 2018. That was pretty busy year for you. We started with the Sakura Cup. Tell us about this one.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. That's badass. Sakura Cup was cool, man. It was one of the coolest competitions experiences I've ever had. And that was the first time I'd ever flown in a tunnel like that. So the second half of the tunnel is also glass as well. So whilst you were training, your friends would be up on the second level, like relaxing at the bar, having a drink, whatever. So if you messed up and you pinged up into the diffuser kind of area, which was no longer a diffuser, now it's a bar, and you see it like, hi!
Yeah, I think on the screen you can just see, like, on the right-hand side, you can see some people just lounging on the floor there.
Yeah.
And it's, I remember in one instance, in one of the rounds, where I got, like, lost my balance a little bit and ended up high, and I saw, like, in the corner of my eye, I saw somebody go, and I'm like, sorry, I got it. I know where I'm going. I know. Just slot back into this.
I think that's one of my favorite routine indoors. I remember the crowd liked it very much, although it wasn't super technical like some of the others, but it was super joyful to watch. I mean,
That's just because we make things look so easy, sweetie. It's technical as hell. We did really, I think the Czech guys, we were battling with the Czech for the third place, and theirs was definitely more technical as ours, but they didn't have enough time to fly it, so they hadn't smoothed it out properly. But then by the time we got to the Europeans, they'd smoothed that out, and then they beat us at Europeans. But it was a cool competition. I think maybe a thing that I learned from that I can share is the first time I ever like you can have a level of performance where you want to be kind of like switched on enough that you're ready to perform, and you don't want to go too far above that line because you melt down. And I've always had a challenge during my competitions of going too much above the line, and like my brain like just going there. This competition was the first time I went too much below the line and got lost. Was like, whoa, where am I in a routine? And that was a really, really weird, new, frustrating thing. So I was like, what? I can be under stressed. So that was an interesting, less hard, embarrassing lesson to learn.
It's funny. Can you compare indoor and outdoor, because you're doing both? I'm guessing you like outdoor more, or it's not a matter of like, it's just different?
I mean,
yeah, that's a hard one. I think it is just different, but like if I had to choose one over the other, if somebody is like, oh, you can only do one, I would do the outdoor for sure.
Yeah, me too.
It's just a different experience, like just being outdoor and all the impressions you get from being in the sky, and like especially when you change locations when you're skydiving, it's just a big thing. If you change the tunnel, it's can also be a big thing, like putting your routine into a different tunnel. But it's not that big of a deal. It's like you fly for a bit and then you know what's going on.
I think what's interesting for me about the difference between training for indoor and training for outdoor as well, I kind of liken it to the fact that like if you're a dancer and you got to go and learn your dance routine, right? And you turn up to the studio every day and you learn your routine. Is kind of more how I experience when we go and learn an indoor routine. Like you turn up to training, you have your set schedule. When we're learning an outdoor routine, it's like you turn up to training, you have a set schedule, and then in between you want to get on each 1 minute dance that you're going to do. You have sharks and lasers and razor blades that you have to dodge in between to try and get this little bit of dance in to see if it kind of feels like the way you thought it was. And it's the whole experience of, like, we've been training once before And accidentally, because in America they have this big wide sky theory, there was a small acrobatic plane flew through our tracking formation, and we were like, what the, you know? And I'm like, in what world is that normal, that these are the kind of challenges that you come across when you're training? So but it's also something that makes it really, really kind of a unique sport, and it's not the same to be an outdoor competitor as it is an indoor, really because of the setup of the competition for training, I'd say.
Set aside all the weather challenges and the plane and everything, which do you find one more stressing, like mentally stressing than the other when you compete indoor or outdoor?
I just want to add that, I just like jumping out of airplanes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that for me is the biggest difference. I mean, I just love jumping out of airplanes and skydive.
Yeah.
So that's a bit,
100%.
close to my heart.
Yeah.
For
no good reason other than it's cool.
Yeah. And any other difference? What was the question?
Yeah, which is, I think tunnel competitions for me are more stressful.
More stressful. It's more intense, and you feel like you're a goldfish in an aquarium.
Yeah.
People are watching you, so it's a little bit more stressful like that, because you're in a social setting.
Yeah.
And people are watching you right there, just a couple of meters away.
Yeah.
That's a little bit more stressful, maybe.
I think maybe as well for us, because we're skydivers, right? So we were skydiving before tunnel flying started, yet we've competed in the tunnel as well. So I feel more at home on a drop zone than I do in a tunnel. So it's just more natural to me. And I've done now maybe more outdoor competitions as well. So you feel a little bit more comfortable in the environment that you're more used to. But they are very similar in the pressure level. Yeah,
I would say so. You get competition stress and nerves. In both arenas, and
it's an more interesting thing in a way in skydiving, because you're going to have those competition stresses and challenges, and then you really have to be good at kind of like not engaging in what's happening as a skydiving operation. You really have to put your trust in the fact that the pilots got it, the ground staff have got it, like the people doing the weather calls, they got it. Like you really have to relinquish your involvement in that area in order to be able to stay in a competitive state.
2018, Australia. Big competition again, many teams from all levels. And am I guessing this is one of your favorite routines?
Yeah, this is we put in a lot of work for this routine. It was like our biggest year, and we're training hard. I think we did over 600 training jumps.
Wow.
This year, and we're really going for it. It's really a cool routine. And it took a lot of time to finish, and we didn't even get to the point where we actually finished it how we wanted it. We had this one move that we just nicknamed the dive of death. But it was like a little bit too full on, because we almost died a couple of times.
A little bit too deathy.
Yeah, a little bit too much death. So we figured it would be a little bit stupid to die on, for example, round 6, just for that extra like half point or whatever it would give us. So we figured we'd scratch that. We spent a lot of time on that move, and then it's like, nah, just gotta go.
Yeah, we scratched it pretty close to the competition as well. We had to make a choice at one point. It was like, whoa.
Yeah, you're actually talking about strategy now. Now, the teams know how the scores work, half technicality and half presentation. Where's your focus? You try to balance, or you're just going?
It depends where we're at in the training process, because I'd say in the beginning we're pretty focused in technicality, because we really want to, like I said before, like challenge ourselves to be able to put new sequences together between Andreas and the performers, and really push ourselves to do things that we haven't done before, and add more rotation, and Yeah, but then as you go through the process, like there's a point where you have to stop looking at it from the inside and stop being so attached to the thing that like you either want to learn or see, and start to look at it more as the entire presentation. And okay, like really, what does this look at? Like we might think it's really cool, but if it just is half not in frame all the time because we can't nail it or you can't really tell what's going on, then how much longer should we stick with that? So for me, at least, I think it changes depending on where we're at in the training schedule, how we weight it.
Yeah, and one thing is the kind of strategy in terms of like the points you think you're gonna get from the judging. But I think like one of the things we decided pretty early on, like actually before we did our first training camp as well, was like it's an artistic and very subjective kind of sport we're doing here. So you can never, like, you can easily go and try and build a routine to satisfy the judges and get the highest score, or you can go and jump out of airplanes with your friends and try to make something look really cool and have a lot of fun doing it. And we went for the road like, okay, we're not gonna get too caught up in what scores well and what is the current thing that is trendy and hot right now. We're gonna go and do something we would like to see and what we think should be the way to fly. And we're going to present that, and like hopefully we won't get too penalized by the judges. Maybe we will. Maybe we take some chances that aren't really strategically smart. But at least like if like I said, we did almost 600 jumps, or we did more than 600 jumps. So that's a lot of jumps trying to build this one routine. And if you build that one routine for not for yourself but for somebody else, I think you're going to end up hating the time training it. So it's better to just like go with your gut feeling and like have a little bit of a chat within the team and like, okay, we want to do this. Maybe we're not going to score that as well, but at least like you're going to enjoy the process, you know?
Yeah.
And it's really cool when you can hear like from other competitors around. It's like, man, really liked what you did there. That was interesting. That was brave. Like, maybe since it is different, maybe it won't score as well. It's a lot of like, you can see some routines where they take some chances like that, and it's like, that's super cool visual, but maybe like it's not super technical maybe, but it's a super cool visual that's probably going to pull the overall score down, but it's still worth it, I'd say, just for that artistic layer.
I think one of the things, we talked about this a lot at the beginning as well as a team, like what we want to do, what do we want to present, and one of the I want to find a better way to say it than one of the most ridiculous things I'd ever seen a team do before, is they basically picked all of the difficult moves from the last couple of World Championships and put them together, and then got really pissed off when they didn't get a good score. And for me, it wasn't inspired. It wasn't beautiful to look at. It was just looking down a sheet of what you think is difficult. It's like painting by numbers. Like, it's not the same.
Exactly why the latest changes in the rules that we took out this table of elements, so you cannot just list it out and try to have more difficulty, because this is not how it works anymore.
And also, like when just looking, it's really, really great to be inspired by your fellow flyer, your fellow competitor, like indoor, outdoor, getting as much input as you can. But if you have the balls to like, nothing's really new, you know? But if you have the balls to, like, as Andreas was saying, like go and try something different, try it from a different perspective. Because also one of the things that you learn the more you train is that with difficulty is everything is difficult until you've done it yourself, right? So if you've watched somebody else do it as well, you have a little bit more of an inside track on how it goes. So when people truly bring something that's like as creative as they can, I really appreciate the effort that goes into that.
Yeah, I think that's in general for the whole community really respects. And when teams do something new, something that's not done before, something that's personal and creative, and I think as a team, you not only want to impress the judges, you want to impress the community. and you want to be proud of your product. That's a big part of it, I think. Psychologically, thinking about flying and the routine.
It sounds very ideal. Like you don't look at the scores. You do it for yourself. You fly for yourself and everything. And still, at the end, sometimes you're super disappointed. And we all been there. We've been in the situations, and I've seen your team struggle with that more than once. How do you move on? Like you just came out, if I'm allowed to say, pissed out of a competition, and now you need to start working on the next one. Why are you still going? Like, how come you don't just like, I'm done?
I mean, like Christian said earlier, for the love of jumping out of plane.
Jumping out of plane is nice, but competing is super expensive. And so many resources.
Yes and no. Like in terms of the money you spend competing, yes, for sure. Like if you're gonna do like 200-300 skydives a year anyway, you might as well like. I see a lot of people participating in a ton of camps, and like obviously it helps a lot with your skills, getting coaching and going to these camps and stuff. But if you can find somebody on your own level that is as passionate, as motivated about flying as you are yourself, or at least it seems like they are, then you can learn a lot from that. Jumping with the same people again and again and again really helps identify your strengths and weaknesses when it comes to flying. And it's like, yeah, why compete? It's because like it's not so much maybe about the frustration in the competition, because the competition is such a tiny part of it. The competition is over 5 days. We've spent 140 days training. So it's like a tiny amount. So like even though like the goal is kind of the competition, and the goal is being on the podium, perhaps it's like it's when you look back at it, it's such a minuscule part of it. It's not really that important, although nothing feels as important when you're there.
And really, so maybe the question is like, why don't you just give up mid-training? And I can even better that. I've given up mid-jump before. I've just been like, I'm out of here.
You didn't jump for a month, right?
Yeah.
I know that look.
Yeah.
I've seen that look.
Yeah, I've seen that look.
Are you losing it now, being in the air? Are you
Sorry?
losing your mind right now, not being in the air?
Actually, I think
we talked about that
today was the first time. I think maybe this is the longest time I've not skydived in like over 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
So,
and I asked you, how is that?
and I was like, I'm ready to jump now.
Even I'm ready to jump now, and I didn't. My last jump was 2015. I mean, like, I'm ready. Come on, bring it on.
Cool.
You guys coaching both camps, like big camps and teams, right? Like specific teams. What's the difference between? Is the different coaching style, or you just do the same?
No, I think it's really different between coaching teams and camps, just because the fact that you, in a camp, quite often your group changes from day to day. So you don't really get as much time with everybody, and there's more people, the ratio of student to coach. So for me, like team coaching or 3 people to 1 coach over 5 days, like, that's a dream situation. I really get to work with people and working with team dynamics. Like team is absolutely one of my favorite kind of coaching to do. It's really hard as well, like way harder than camp coaching. Camp coaching can be like a little bit more like, woo, yeah.
It's very different. I haven't done so much team coaching, but I know from talking to you, it's a lot about giving them some tool set so they can benefit from your coaching in the next year.
Yeah.
And not just about there and then and making a safe jump and giving them something right there and that day. It's more about having a relationship and giving them tools and coaching them. Very different.
How is it working in a team coaching? Like all 3 of you sitting with a team, or
No, we've done both. We've done that. We'll be there. It's actually pretty interesting to work from the perspective as well with a camera flyer and a performer at the same time. We have a very different experience of how we would maybe often approach the same thing. So like ideally, it's really cool to have a performer and a camera flyer there as well. But it's never usually 3-on-3 kind of thing. If we were going to talk about free fly specifically, so it'd either be 2-on-3 or 1-on-3.
And what's the feeling to see the team you just trained competing against you?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Come and beat us. Bring it. We haven't really. No, we have now. Haven't we? We had.
You had Flux.
The Danes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really cool, and they're doing really good. I'm super proud of them. Like it's badass.
Yeah.
And we had now most recently I was coaching the Australian guys down to fly. They're going to be Australia 2 in the next competition as well. And yeah, you can watch out for those guys. They're going to be good too. Cool.
I mean, it's a lot of fun coaching teams and seeing them come up, and it's like it would be actually really awesome if one of the teams would be like fighting right there up with us, like battling that sort of team, because it's like of course it's like, oh, we can't let these guys beat us, but like it takes a lot of effort, and like we put in a lot of time and effort to get to where we are now, and it takes a tremendous effort to keep on training for a long period of time. And to see somebody put in the effort to do that is super cool. And like that's the end of it. It's just cool to see people come up and seeing how good people get, and the progress they make, and the choices they make in their flying styles and putting stuff together.
How much do you interfere with their choices? Like, do you let them, like, I know different kind of coaching, like some coaches just, you have to do this, and some coaches like let you choose. And
A little bit
I think
different.
the right way is somewhere in between, but how do you work?
I mean,
depends on the level of where they're at in their progression.
Yeah, and it depends a little bit for free routine and compulsory as well, because there's obviously a lot of set things that we can give for compulsories because we've flown them so many times. But with a free routine, it's like we talked about earlier, we're real big advocates of it has to be something that you want to do. Because if you take something as your coach wants to do, or as the judges want to do to a competition, then you're ultimately on a road to failure anyway, I think. So you three involved in it have to be the ones that really stand behind that, you know. So very different. And from the first lesson, I would say, with team coaching is it's like the first kind of thing that we go through is less to do with actual moves and more to do with, as Christian said, like the tools to be a team. Because if you don't have the foundation set, then it's really no point talking about anything else.
Your last competition so far, Eloy, 2019. I love that competition. It was tiny, a lot of new teams. Even the new teams are fair level, and it was just fun and with really good vibes, right?
Yeah, it was cool. It was really, really nice. All the teams hung out together a lot.
And Max is in the team.
Yeah.
Trader, I really need you on my judging panel, but okay, here you go. So tell us more about this routine.
I mean, this was a challenging year.
This was so been throwing out some numbers and things like how much we trained, and this is definitely the least prepared me and Anna have ever been for a competition in terms of jump numbers before a competition. So Petter, our old teammate, had a head injury the year before, and he was out for a year basically with that. And Mox said yes to step into the team, and we started training, and Mox had a job, so he had to do that on the side, and we trained for as much as we could, basically, which was not a whole lot. And then midsummer, I ended up falling off my bike and injuring my shoulder. So Anna and Mox tried to squeeze in as much jumping as they could together, but at the end of it, I think we did around 200 jumps as a team. Which was a little bit like intimidating, especially for me, because like usually it's going to be like the last like small, like once we start polishing the routine, it's usually for me as the camera flyer that gets to actually polish it off the last, because like some tweaks and something has to happen with the framing. And I think like I was satisfied maybe like 5 jumps before the competition started. I was like not really satisfied, but like this will do. This will do.
We did like the beginning of the season, Andreas and I were jumping together, still kind of hoping there's a possibility that Petter will come back. And then when we did some jumps in the beginning of the season to try to start to explore a new line, which was actually really cool.
Yeah.
And something that we would carry forward as well, because you can understand quite a lot faster with 2 people than you can with 3. So then it was like a chunk with moves. And then we started training together, but just for a little bit. Mox went back to work. Then Andreas injured himself, and I did like a chunk with Mox. And then at one point, I was like, "What is even going?" Like almost the closest you've been to being like, "Is this the universe trying to give us signs? Like there's never anybody at training. We're like, what are we even going to do?" But it was cool. Like
I was impressed with you guys, and I think I attribute it to the experience you had as a team earlier, by how you managed to pull it together and have a product at the end. Because I felt like I was much less involved with the building of the routine last year, because I stepped in and you already had ideas and I had to start jumping. So I just kind of followed along. But I was starting to get really nervous getting closer to the competition.
I remember in the judging room, we were looking at the video you gave for difficulty set. And there was this one move that you're supposed to barrel together. And we had, between judges, an entire discussion looking at your drama sheet, trying to figure out if this is supposed to be together and you just messed it up, or it's actually a different move with the philosophy behind it. And you can definitely tell between the first jump of the competition or the video that you gave for a difficulty set and the end of the competition, like it was almost a different routine. Like it was, yeah.
We were pretty lucky, I'd say, to have like Mox as a stand-in as well. Like it's not really very often you get to pull on such a high-level flyer at like.
Yeah, he's okay, huh? I trained him well in the judging room.
Right, and we already had some big ideas, so because we had some moves in there that we, like I said, we've been exploring as a 2-way before. So we would just be like, yeah, don't worry, Mox. Yeah, you got this. Just follow me. It's gonna be good. He's like, wait, what? Yeah, you're gonna be fine. Just go do it some more times. It's gonna be great.
Few times along the years, 2016 in Chicago and definitely 2019 in Eloy, we did this workshop at the end of the competition to work all the rules. And for me, from the judging side, and my biggest goal is to keep the communication between judges and flyers open. And I think without this cooperation, we cannot push the sport forward. And I used you a lot this last round of rules changes that we did. What do you think about the format that we have now? Do you see any major changes that can be done to make the competition way better, or that would make a big difference? It's going to make it nicer to compete? Or
I really like how we have with the compulsory, so there's entry level moves for people to try, so it becomes more accessible to start the competition, because I remember it just being really daunting and overwhelming to think about how the hell am I going to be able to do those compulsories, you know? So now I really, really think that it's cool that we have the different tiers. And I think for the progression of the competition, it's almost smarter that we continue to build on the moves that we have. So, because we know so much about them already. you know? So like if we change things all the time, I don't think that we can come as far as we can in the competition like they do in FS, for example, because you really understand things about a move when you have done it for a long time. Like that, for me, that might be like a little bit controversial, because I know that we really like to change things in our compulsories, but I'm not sure whether that helps us or hinders us, because I think that it's more smart to do this tiering system, that when we see that we can build on or add more rotation or learn something from a compulsory that already exists, it means we can transfer knowledge to the newcomers as well.
Anything else you want to share with the teams, with new flyers, with the people who are coming to your camps, people who just started skydiving and want to be world champions one day?
I mean, rule number 1, show up. That's
Jump.
yeah, you just gotta show up and jump.
Show up and jump.
That's the best tip.
Keep doing it and you'll get better. Hope.
Yeah.
Just skydive, jump more.
Yeah. I think I'm probably a free fly competition geek. I've been following this for a while now, and I remember being, and even freestyle as well, like I think I saw a routine of Teti when I first started jumping in Imperia Bravo, right? And it's like I had like 8 jumps, and I watched a freestyler in the back of the bar after we finished like our AFF, and I was just like, wow, what is that? I need to do that. And everyone was like, not like, that's not even like so far out of the realm of possibility, you know, don't even bother. So I think that it's good to be inspired and like stupid, because if you really like think about, or if you listen to all of the sensible people that are like, that's going to take way too long to learn, then maybe you'll never do anything. But if you just go blindly and follow your heart and keep jumping, you'll be surprised what you can get into.
Yeah, and free fly has only existed as a competition format at world level since the early 2000s. It would be awesome if we could find all the videos from the the top teams back then. I've been trying to find Team Alchemy.
Some sick moves, man. It's really
Rook,
cool.
when he won.
Yeah, Rook's badass.
2002 or where it was. And I haven't been able to find it. It was online earlier, but it would be so cool to see those old videos.
Hey guys, super nice and fun. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for doing it.
Yeah, thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. Good night, guys. Thank you.
Take it easy.
Thank you.
Lots of love.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.